The Advil or aspirin also not enough. So she needed urgently an operation, otherwise the pus would go to her brain and she would die of blood poisoning. My grandfather had a good friend and he was a ear surgeon, and he did the operation, and really the pus came out, but it didn't stop. And the whole 8 months in Westerbork, she was in this hospital and she didn't want to eat. The food was awful. Father and me would sit there for hours after work. She should eat something, otherwise she had no chance to survive. So thank to God she survived. And we come to her, no, not yet. We come to November 43. And what happened was, every week, once or twice, would come these cattle cars. And there had to be about 1,000 people inside. 950, okay. But 600 you couldn't send. It's a waste of money. It was Jewish money, but that we didn't know. So there were Jewish people that had to help the commandant to make the list full. And that was very cool, because very often they had to take their own friends or family members to make the list full to 1,000 or 980 or something. And so we came to what I mentioned before, that there were this Palestine list and other things. In meantime were taken also to Westerbork, but we again could stay in meantime. And the Jewish people that helped the commandant to make the list always full, after all were decent people, wanted to save the children from the orphanage, maybe it were 200 the moment we arrived, and put all of them at the Palestine exchange lists. And so the whole orphanage was for the moment safe, but in November 43, at one night, first in beginning November my grandfather died of a heart attack, and end of November again the trains came as usual. There were not 1,000 people, and the commandant decided, I don't need 40 lists for exchange, because all the children now were written at the lists. I need only 2. And at that night we didn't have to go, maybe some 8 girls or so, but the whole orphanage was emptied. One of the saddest nights in my whole life. After the war, once I met a couple, very nice couple I didn't know before, and at that night their 2 children were sent, and they came back without children. Later we learned they went straight to the gas chambers. We come to the second miracle of my sister. The commandant calls all the people that were in meantime in Westerbork with a passport like us of South America, North America, Canada and England. And he told us, you are lucky people, you are not going to a working camp in the East, you are going to an exchange camp, Bergen-Belsen, and everybody will be exchanged to his country. So we should have gone to Paraguay, or maybe to Palestine. Okay. And now they were sent, not at once, but several times. My family's term was 15th of February 44, and we were sent with a real train, not with cattle cars. We even got a piece of bread. We could sit like human beings, not like the poor people to Auschwitz, 3 days, 3 nights, not sitting, no toilet. And Bergen-Belsen is not far from the Dutch border. Westerbork is also not far from the German border. So we had only, not like to Auschwitz, 3 days, 3 nights, only several 6 hours or so, I don't remember. We arrived near this camp 7 kilometers before, And the women with little children were allowed to, no, everybody went out of the train but had to walk to the camp. But the women with the little children and the sick were allowed to go with a van. My sister with a big bandage, she was already over 3 years, but so I could come with her. I was not yet 16, and we were allowed to go with the van to the camp. But father and grandma had to walk, and when we arrived they were not there. We got with all these women a very big barrack, 2-story beds, and I didn't know anybody. And father and grandma arrived, I don't remember, after several days. But at the moment I didn't know, and we were alone. And I got the next morning awake and I had yellow eyes. And I was told, you have jaundice. And you have to go to an isolation barrack, otherwise the whole thing, everybody will be sick. What are I doing with my little sister? I cannot leave her alone and I cannot take her. I was out. I didn't know what to do. And then I have to say God helped. I met an older lady I knew from Amsterdam, and she asked me, because I cannot ask her, please be my babysitter. Everybody was so happy he could stay with his family. I don't know today, not in Jerusalem, not in New York, who will take such a weak little girl, smelling bad because pus is streaming and very weak. And so really she asked me, and what happened, why are you crazy? And when I told her, she said, maybe I can help you. And she brought a lady from her family, a very religious Jewish lady. And why do I call it a miracle? Because this lady had 7 children, 2 boys with her husband and 5 girls with herself. And she said, I will help you, I will take tomorrow morning your little sister. Your father always helped everybody, now it's my turn. And really, in the morning before I had to go to isolation barrack, her oldest daughter came and took my little sister. The woman every day came to tell me in this hospital, or how you call it. Then my father was also coming, and after work we were next to each other, the men and the women. There was barbed wire between us with a gate, and once or twice a week the men were allowed to visit the women. Then my father had to visit me in the hospital, to visit my sister with his family. And after a month, when I was healthy again, I told the lady, tomorrow I can go home to a barrack. And she said, try to change your barrack, come also to live with us, and we are one big family. That's what I could do. The woman, her husband and her oldest son died from malnutrition and typhus after the liberation. The 7 children, the 6, came here to Israel, and the eldest daughter, my age, she died 2 years ago, and the others are, thank to God, still alive. Okay. The last miracle of my sister, we arrive in this camp Bergen-Belsen, and look, we got 20 barracks all at the end. When we arrived in February 1944, the camp was almost empty. The British liberated the camp in April 1945. There were 60,000 people. 15,000 still died of typhus and malnutrition. It was too late for them. The British very much tried, also later the Russians. And now we get all at the end, near the barbed wire, 20 barracks. 1 barrack was already full, and we got 19 for the people from Holland. The 1 barrack that was full was filled with Jewish people from Saloniki. And these people had English passports. All the others were also sent to Auschwitz. In Saloniki lived 50,000 Jewish people. And I don't think you know, Saloniki was the only harbor in the whole world that did not work at Saturday, because 90% were Jewish people that worked there. But don't be afraid, today it works at Saturday and not at Sunday. There are left some 1,000 old people and that's it. And these people with the English passports were now our bosses, because they arrived in August 43 and we January, February, March 44. They arrived with their rabbi. And this rabbi once worked in Berlin years ago and was a good friend of my father. And these people had all the good jobs and were our bosses. And the wife of the rabbi had for me the best job. The rabbi asked my husband, what about this little girl, what happened, and so on. And he said to his wife, maybe you can help and save the little girl. And she did. How could the wife of the rabbi help and save my little sister? She got from the German authorities, don't overdo it, not every day, twice a week a little bowl with milk, and the milk was for the children under 3 years. My sister, in meantime, 3 years and 4.5 months old. So no milk, only water. And the woman gave me the milk for my sister. We were 14 months in Bergen-Belsen. The last 2 or 3 months, no milk for nobody. But a year about, my sister got 2 glasses of milk. And I am sure that with only water she couldn't have survived. What is very sad, the woman died here in the country and I didn't know. I much after her death learned she was in Tel Aviv living. I lived in Jerusalem and I didn't know that she was there and I never looked for her. Very sad, I never really could thank her. The rabbi still died after liberation. And now we come to the end of the story. I want to say there was maybe a fourth miracle. After several months, the pus stopped. And I asked the doctor, how is that possible? People are all dying around and here my little sister gets healthy without medicine. And the doctor, I think he was right, he said, in Holland it's very humid and not so cold. And Bergen-Belsen is very dry and cold, and it dried out the pus of her ears.
Wow.
And that was real,
Interesting.
also a miracle. Okay. So now we come to the end of the story, we come back to Anne Frank. Look, the Russians come nearer the camps in Poland. The Germans don't want to see the Russians what they did to all these people. And they let in the camps the real dying people, but all the others have to go on very dreadful death marches into Germany. They were brought there in one of the concentration camps or even in factories still to help to make munition. At this way, thousands died, and they couldn't flee, they couldn't do anything. But the real dying stayed in Auschwitz, and the Russians liberated Auschwitz 27th of January. Mr. Frank was sent to Auschwitz with the very last transport from Westerbork in September. And he was staying in a barrack for dying people. If he would have been sent on these dreadful death marches, he couldn't have made it. His wife didn't make it, he made it, and Anne and Margot were sent